Is it good like this? This will be what's recorded like this. Good to go. I'm gonna get started.
Pardon?
I'm gonna get started.
Okay, so I should stop.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
They'll have to wait a moment. Yeah, Jason just got here, so I think that's a big sign. Well, I'm sorry about that. Before, even if we're not feeding people before, just to get it ready, and you can cover it and not let them. We'll get her done. The glasses will be for her. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm going to get started because we have such a large group here. And I'm not in the right place for the YouTube channel. I will move over in a moment. But I just wanted to address you to let you know that we're about to begin. As many of you know, and I won't go too far into this, Leanne has also been presenting within the gallery, but also on her YouTube channel and in the performative exchange in a variety of ways. So I will go over to the YouTube channel right away. And just to be clear, there will be reception after, but you have to give us a moment to get everything looking tickety-boo, because an incredible outpouring of family and community is here to make that happen. And we're so grateful to have you here. And thank you so much for supporting Leanne in this incredible moment. So I'm going to go over there. If you can't see me, I know you will hear me. So please excuse me. I'm just going to go over here. And I'm just here because we're doing this multimedia thing that some of us got used to over the COVID exchange. But it also is incredible to be at University of Saskatchewan here in Saskatoon on Treaty 6 territory and know that people well beyond this location can witness and enjoy and engage in what Leanne has been doing. So my name is Jake Moore. I'm the director of the University Art Galleries and Collection, and I have the pleasure of also being a faculty member here in Art and Art History. My role here is to welcome you, knowing full well that I am a guest on this territory. So I just want to make clear that University of Saskatchewan and the art galleries and collections, as well as now our School for the Fine Arts, are located here on Treaty 6 territory, and we fully recognize that this is the land of the Nahiawak, the Dene, the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota, Soto, Anishinaabe, as well as the homeland of the Métis Nation. When we make this recognition of location and what it means to be on this land, it's more than simply acknowledging a long history of engagement, desire for treaty and true relations. It also is to understand that just acknowledging it is not enough. We know that. It's not adequate just to simply say we were not the first ones here, and people that have been here since time immemorial have marked and engaged with this land in important ways. And all of us mark and engage in this land in important ways, but we need to have a renewed sense of how we relate to one another. So at the University Art Galleries and Collections, as well as at the School for the Arts, we understand that we have to commit to that engagement, that relationship, understanding changes that are required, and asking for a method of reciprocity. So as the director of the galleries, it's my desire to welcome you here and let you know what our intentions are as we gather on this space tonight. I do want to foreground just a little bit that this will be the first cohort graduating from the School for the Arts after many, many years of being art and art history, moving into this amalgamation of drama, art and art history, as well as music. There's a remarkable series of changes afoot. And this idea of transition is complex and difficult and requires reciprocity and respect amongst one another to make good things come of it. But I'm quite actually cautiously optimistic of what potentially could happen when you look at the incredible potential of creative minds coming together to create not new place, because the place was already here, but what is the space? What is the potential? What will come of this? So I welcome you here with all that in mind, and it's my great pleasure to introduce one of my colleagues and I would say friends here, who's also the supervisor of Leanne Reed, who will present to you kind of this path towards this exhibition. But first I want to introduce Lisa Burke, who is a colleague here, director of digital expanded practices, and an incredible faculty member. And she will introduce her supervisee, Leanne Reed. So thank you so much, Leanne.
Thanks so much for that warm welcome, Jake. Very much appreciated. And absolutely, friend. And I do have to read a little bit because Leanne's list of accolades is so long that I was not able to memorize it. So do bear with me. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with Leanne over what's now been 5+ years. She's hardworking, motivated, and as you'll see today, she pushes herself to extreme limits. And I'm extremely excited for how far Leanne has come with her work. And I kind of remember how she was like this kind of quiet, shy student in my digital media classes. And I just have to mention this, I hope it's not embarrassing, but she made this fabulous animation of these bears dancing, and they were kind of creepy, and it will stay with me forever. And it's just lovely to see her journey from those initial animations to where she's come to today. So I give her a huge congratulations. And I also gotten the pleasure of getting to know Leanne as a research assistant. She's been helping me with my own studio practice in a number of productions, and she's also been helping us out in an AR-based research project here at the university called Shared Spaces. And just to give you a little sense of what Leanne's accomplished here at the university, she's been the recipient of what I have to say has to be every single award that our department offers. So bear with me. She's a recipient of the University Graduate Scholarship, the Judy Poole Award in Art and Art History, Arts and Science Undergraduate Scholarship, the Prince Edward's Arts Scholarship, the Manjari Sharma Memorial Award in Sculpture, the Hantelman Humanities Undergraduate Scholarship, the Anna Baczynski Award for Excellence in the Fine Arts or Music, and she's been also on the Dean's Honors List. And she was selected to be part of a research grant which was through the Global Water Futures Program, the Global Institute for Water Security and Water Science and Harmony in Canada. And she was the lead animator working with a master's student in music by the name of Ricardo Martins. And together they produced an animated short film which was recently screened at the Ramey Modern. It was presented in relation to various themes and ideas from Capuanas Kiwanga's exhibition Remediation that was being presented at the Ramey Modern program during January, February, and March of 2024. And the film, What Are You Waiting For?, was also screened in the BC Environmental Film Festival in 2021. And she also sent out another student production that she did called The Bridge, and was part of the First Time Filmmaker session at Pinewood Studios. So she's also already had some screenings under her belt in the professional world, even though she hasn't yet graduated. So that's a huge accomplishment as well. She's also been part of Nuit Blanche Eve, like 3 years now, I think. And she's also presenting her own students' work in the coming version of the festival in September, so keep an eye out for that. She also presented her research to Saskatchewan's Minister of Advanced Education at the Celebration of Scholarship at the Saskatchewan Legislature in Regina, and at the Graduate Student Research Showcase Future Now, the Undergraduate Project Symposium, where she presented What Are You Waiting For? And she was awarded the Artistic Engagement Award as well as third place for Social Sciences, Humanities, and Fine Arts from the USask Students Union. And she's also, I gotta catch my breath, worked as an instructor for us in the department. She has taught animation and digital space, the second level of that class last year, and has taught digital and integrated practices in the past, and will also be teaching that in the fall. So we're so excited that Leanne will be sticking around, and we will get to see her in the fall. And on top of all of this, she's also been running her own photo studio since 2013. Leanne Reed Photography. She's a beloved mom and grandmother, and I think there might be some representation here in the room, so I'm really happy to see those faces. So thank you so much for coming and supporting the fabulous Leanne, and I'm really excited to bring you up to the front, Leanne, so that you can present your work.
Thanks. So I'm just gonna have to laugh because I do have a mic on my computer, but I forgot to plug the mic in for my YouTube channels.
It's better on silent anyway.
No, you would be recorded just in a different way. Yeah, I don't know how to follow that. Yeah, so I have been here for 5 years. That was me on the first day of school in 2019. No idea that I was going to be where I'm at now. I basically came to the university because I always wanted to get a degree. I kind of found my path into the BFA program, and then got encouragement from Lisa as well as Susan to continue and apply for my master's, and thankfully I was accepted, and yeah, it's been a journey. I had big dreams this day, but didn't expect it to come to this. I'm tired, I'm probably emotional. I'm just gonna warn everybody. It's funny that you say that about me, because there was an animation class that I wanted to get into, and it was full, and it was one that, like, I went through the list of classes, and I'm like this like timid student, and I'm like, well, I'm going to contact Professor Lisa Burke and just see if, you know, she'll let me in, because somebody said you could email the professor and get an override. So yeah, so I emailed, and she graciously let me into her class. this is the very first animation I ever created. This will be the only time that this is seen other than when it was marked by Lisa. This is not the bears. This is a still image photo. Like we had to draw each layer and then photograph it and stuff. It's horrible now that I look at it. Lisa never made me feel like this was bad. She made me feel like, your timing's a little off. You could add a little bit more story. And just like encourage me. And so like that was like after that, if there was an animation, a video class, sound class, anything that Lisa took, I was in it. I've recently created a new animation called Renewed the Second Take that debuted at the grad show that was at the Francis Morrison Library. It's also on my YouTube channel, so if you haven't seen it, you can check it out. I'll talk more about how I developed this process with some of the work that I've done throughout the grad studies. So, first year of the master's program, I wanted to take some classes that I hadn't taken in my undergrad because like I graduated in 22 and then I went straight into my master's, so there were still things that I hadn't taken. And so everybody was like, you should take printmaking. So I did printmaking, but for me because I like sculpture work and stuff like that, I wanted to see how I could change those prints into like a 3D model. So I just experimented with taking the prints and then cutting them up and making them into boxes, and absolutely loved how the texture was on that. I made collagraphs, and so that's like where you take wood and then you put like material on it, seal it in, and then you put it through a press with wet paper, and then it presses the ink onto the paper, and then you let it dry, and then just the textures that I was getting was amazing. So I wanted to like create 3D boxes out of that. And then so I also do a lot of 3D scanning, which with augmented reality. So I took that and I scanned it, and I just use mostly my phone. I've learned now how to use it. I've got a program that I use that I can use a DSLR camera to get more detail. But these are like I was just scanning these with my phone, and then I was putting it into a program called Arrow and creating augmented sculptures. So basically that's kind of like what I like to do is create the sculptures and then scan them and then put them into my digital world, which is what I did for Renewed the Second Take. I scanned like my sculptures that I was kind of building, and then I put it into my animation. So I kind of have a lot of different, so I was working like as a research assistant with Shared Spaces, and part of that was trying out different apps. And so we worked with 5 different apps. The ones that I found that I like working with the best are Clone and Curie Engine, and I can talk more about this like for those of you that don't understand 3D scanning, but it's like just an app that you download from the Apple Store on your iPhone, and Curie Engine also works on Androids. And so that was the one thing that kind of part of the research is like how to get everybody's phones to do this scanning and work. And so it was interesting because like we were working with like different objects. Like I have the tree, and I actually went out, I don't know if you guys that walk along the Sutherland Dog Park, like I walked out to I think it's like the sewage thing that the water comes out. It's nasty, but I like scanned this like all the way through, and it's actually a 3D model that I can work with now. And then I also, of course, scanned my pianos and created, and that's on my Instagram with, you can place it and it activates. So, yeah, so that's kind of like what I did there. I also, in my first year, apparently I have these animated. So in the first year of my program, I was working with a personal trainer. Actually, Taylor's here tonight, so that's kind of cool. And so we were doing boxing for cardio. And being a photographer since 2013, I was always on the other side of the camera. I was always the one that was capturing people, but I was never brave enough to be on the other side. I was always worried about how I looked, like all these things. Just working out with a personal trainer gave me the courage to go on the other side of the camera for a bit. And so we were doing a grad show called Occupy in the winter of 2023. And I had Clint set up, and I had this projected onto, had all these videos that were playing. And that was the first time I had experience with being performance on the other side of the camera. I then went and I worked with paint and canvases and tried to do some work with using boxing gloves with paint and canvases, and it was just, it kind of started to frustrate me because I wasn't getting, first of all, the response that I wanted, but also like I wasn't getting satisfied in myself with that. So I'm like, that's gonna be on the back burner. I'm gonna just put that in the side pocket and I'm gonna move on. So about a year ago, I started experimenting with different ways of using piano material. So I get asked the question a lot, why pianos? So, pianos have been with me since early in life. So, it's just something, like as a child I took piano lessons and, for a short time, and then later on in life I took them again. My mom plays the piano, my sister, many of my nieces, lots of our family does. So passion for piano has been a significant part of our family lives. And the hair. And also, my kids took piano lessons. I didn't tell you guys I was putting you on here. I don't know if it would have been allowed. At Christmas, we would have a concert around the piano. So like each of our families, so all of the grandkids, mom's grandkids could have a choice if they wanted to perform and how they would perform. And so lots of times the kids would learn songs, or like somebody would play the piano while somebody sang. And so it's just something that kind of was really special for our memories. And then the piano that my kids took lessons on, over time, they stopped taking lessons, and then it sat in the corner and it lost its tune. And it's like, why tune a piano that, first of all, you're gonna have to tune it like yearly or every other year, and nobody's playing it. And it sat in the corner for, I don't know, like 4 years, hopefully that somebody would play it, I don't even know. And then I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna take it apart and create a bench. So I looked on Pinterest, to see the ideas, and I wanted to have that as part of, like, keep the memory of the piano, but just in a different way. So while taking the piano apart, I was like fascinated with the details that were inside of it. I never really thought of it as an art project when I initially was taking it apart. I was just really thought it was, the felt's cool and all that kind of thing. But during my MFA, while I was an MFA student, is when I really wanted to like investigate this material further. So I began experimenting in different ways. So I like took the hammers apart and glued them together in different fashion, as you can see on the left. And then on the right, I took piano keys and I screwed them. And then I took the piano pins, and the pins are the part that like holds the strings into what I call the harp. I'm not sure, some people say soundboard, the metal, the big cast iron part of the piano. So I put that on like a solid wood thing, and I hung it like that. And it's not that I wasn't happy with this, but I just kind of wasn't really, I knew that I needed to experiment further. So as I was working with the piano material, I decided to get a few more. So, sorry, sorry, I didn't tell you guys that I was putting this on either. So once I started working with the piano material, I went on Facebook Marketplace and I searched for pianos, and then how do I get those into my garage? So they're free on Facebook Marketplace, but how do I get them to me? So I contacted the Saskatoon Piano Movers, and I'm like, so can I ask how much it would cost to get 6 pianos picked up from locations around the city and brought to my garage? And the guy's like, I think his name was Wayne, he's like, are you a hoarder? I'm like, well, I'm an artist, does that count? And so he got me in contact with Clay. And so it was gonna be a lot to get them picked up and brought to my garage. So, but they're like, well, we have a couple on the truck that are going to the dump. Do you want us to bring those? And so I was like, yeah, absolutely, for sure. And then so in that process, then I also had already contacted these people on Facebook. And so my brother-in-law, my nephew, my cousin, and his son, we used a cube van and we went around and we picked up 6 pianos in the city that day. And yes, my family still loves me. As you can see, it was not easy work getting those in. So then after that, I struck a deal with the piano movers. And if they got one on their truck that was going to the dump, they would give me a text and I could decide if I needed one or not. So my garage was getting pretty full and there was like barely any room. And Clay, the piano mover, was like, I got one on my truck that's going to the dump. And I'm like, but I told you that I don't have room. And he's like, okay, well, that's okay. Like, you don't have to take it, but we're going to take it to the dump. And I'm like, okay, bring it over. And I was like, and then that's when I kind of realized that it was like a little bit of an obsession, but also the fact that I couldn't see this material or like these treasured instruments just being discarded of and just thrown away, because there was so much beautiful material in these instruments. So I had all these pianos. How was I going to work with it? So I decided to let the material be a little bit freer. I no longer took the hammers apart and used the glue. I no longer screwed the keys together and all of those things. So there was a 3-week show called Senius that the grad students had in January of this year. And so we worked in the gallery, and it was kind of like similar, like it was a progressive show, and we worked, the 10 of us were in here whenever we wanted throughout those 3 weeks. And I kind of just started to let the material decide for itself how it wanted to be a little bit more, and just kind of appreciate the material and not necessarily how I was building it. So I think, like, during Senius, there was a lot of conversation about, like, well, how long does it take you to take a piano apart, or, like, different things like that. And I hadn't really thought of that. So, because most of my pianos, I like, oh, I need keys, so I'm going to take the keys out, or I need hammers, I'm going to take the hammers out, or, there's strings. And so, I was taking a performance-based art history class at the same time, and this was kind of because of the boxing. I wanted to, like, investigate performance art a little bit more. So I decided to do, so part of my, for one of the projects, we had to kind of look into like a performance art based, we could either write an essay or perform. And anybody that knows me, like, writing is not my, anyways, so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this performance art piece. So I looked up one of the websites that we were, kind of a lot of our conversation was around, and there was this 14-hour exercise. And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool, like a 14-hour exercise. And there was like rules, kind of, or not rules, but like parameters that you should do something for 14 hours, not 12, because 14 is like that extra. And then decide how you're going to do it and what you're going to do, and then just enjoy the process. So I was like, okay, well, this is perfect. I'm going to take a piano apart for 14 hours. And then, so my parameters were kind of simple, like I'm going to have everything in the garage, I'm going to have my tools and supplies ready, I'm going to isolate myself, and I'm going to try not to leave the garage, which I ended up not leaving the garage for 14 hours. Mom did bring me food, which I'm very thankful for. And that was the first. So as I was doing it, I would also, so part of my rules, I guess I would say, is like I would post every hour on Instagram. I would document like with photos, and then I would also journal. And so it was interesting to me because I basically went into this thing being like, I'm going to take this piano apart for 14 hours. And it's going to be about the process, it's going to be about the material, it's going to be about how much I get done. And then all of a sudden it started changing, and it was like every hour, it was like, that's another hour gone by. That hour took a long time. Whoa, that hour went pretty quick. And then it was like, started thinking like how much I appreciate time and how much I appreciate your time because you are here for me. And so that's the one thing that like, it was life-changing in this minute. Like these 14 hours are life-changing. And so part of this was like, I was recording it and I was saving it, but nobody was gonna really see this because it was me in my garage with no audience and no really anybody watching, other than if you were following me on Instagram. So that kind of what led me to my show Reverberations. I've done a progressive show. I'm not sure if you haven't been following. So basically every day I was in my garage, I was streaming into the gallery for the first week, and then every night I would bring in material. So the show built throughout the 2 weeks. So every day I would do different things. Like I didn't really have like guidelines on exactly what I was going to do. I looked back at my paper I had my defense last night, and I looked back at my paper and it was like, I'm going to take apart 6 to 8 pianos in a week. And I'm just like, well, that was ambitious. I think I ended up taking 3.5 apart, but yeah, so it kind of changed. Like I decided that I was also going to have other people come in and maybe affect the way that this was going. I'm just going to let this go for a minute. So as you can see, like a lot of things changed throughout. The weekend in between is when the major extra large pieces came in, because I couldn't do that physically by myself, so I needed some extra help. And then I videoed this, I scanned it, I took photos, because I really wanted to like show the changes every day. That was where the weekend. yeah, so part of my process was bringing other people into my work. So I reached out to a few people. My mom, the first day, came and played the piano in the garage and entertained me while I was working on the piano. She brought me food. My sister came one day and played the piano and helped me take a harp out. My kids showed up. My friends showed up. Everything was unscripted. It was all whatever you kind of want to do when you get here. I think the thing that broke my heart the most was when Courtney showed up for an hour and a half with iced coffee and crumble cookies, and we talked about Bachelorette and Big Brother, and it didn't record. My live stream went down. It was a great conversation, but then we're like, well, hopefully nobody's watching this that hasn't seen it yet. Spoiler. So, I mean, it wasn't all physical stuff, but it was also, like, it was always things that I was doing things. I was always busy for these 2 weeks. So, if somebody showed up in my garage, I would, like, post on Instagram, or, like, I was, like, taking photos and posting on Instagram. I started, like, a couple weeks before the show, to also, like, kind of start advertising or, like, promoting it, like what was gonna happen. And then I live streamed from my garage for both weeks. So if anyone went on the second week, they would see an empty garage. Some days there was a beautiful motorcycle in there, some days there wasn't. So yeah, so it was like, kind of like, as I was working, it was my way of kind of extending beyond the gallery walls for people that couldn't make it in or didn't have time to make it in, but also wanted to kind of follow my journey. I posted polls on Instagram. So Wednesday was kind of a major day this week. I had a bunch of polls on Instagram of how people wanted me to do things. My plan that day for my performance was to give up a bit of control in here. So I posted and I let people vote on different aspects of what they wanted me to do. Oh yeah, I took the piano apart around Mom, so if you find that video, that was a good one, as she was playing. And then when people came to the gallery on Wednesday, then they were allowed to also participate in either the making or deciding for me what I did. So that was interesting. I've realized I do like to have control over everything, which also when I lost footage or things didn't work, I was like, so I actually have a journal of things that were like, that I lost control of over these 2 weeks, because I was just like, I realized I need to have control over everything, and then it's like, but I didn't have control over these things. So yeah, it was interesting to see the process and like kind of what came out of it. And so every day the gallery's changed. This was yesterday's shot. So if you look around here, you can already see that today has changed again. So I had people that were coming. So one of the pianos I picked up was from a senior unit, and the people that I had contacted came last week, and they came this week, and I was lucky enough to be here when they came. And so it was interesting to see like the conversation of how they were like the difference in what they saw coming. There was some art students that were in a class just in the drawing room, and they kept coming in and seeing the difference every day. And so it was kind of interesting to have that process kind of go through. Yeah, so like it's good and bad for me, because like my show's over, but I don't actually get to exhibit what my show, because my show was, as it grew, was the exhibition. So it's just an interesting way for me to experiment, to still experiment with my art, and to like, and then the things that I've learned these last 2 weeks about myself and about the process and all that. So it's been interesting. Yeah, so that's it. I don't know what time it is.
Yes, are there any questions for Leanne? So
start us off with a question, because it was really brave to do something like, you know, we have these expectations, oh, there's an exhibition, we're going to go, we're going to see the art, it's going to be finished, so to say, and contained. What, like, how did you go about that decision making that you were going to do kind of like a process-based show? And I'm also curious why you wanted to have the public intervention, also the questions and the interaction with the public.
So the process, like when we did Seniors, that was like it was so interesting to me because like I'd be working on something and somebody would come in and we'd have a conversation, and lots of people get nostalgic about their pianos, or they get you know, like they talk about memories that they had and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed, you know, even just the feedback that people would give me coming in. They would be like, well, I see this or I see that. And so that was one thing that I really was interested in with this, was because like you don't get to have, when you just come in and install in a weekend, you don't get to have that where you have conversation and everything with people as much. I don't think, like when they see you working on it in process, then I think there's a little bit more conversation. And then just, I think the biggest thing is like, I'm pretty digital. And so I was trying to figure out a way to like incorporate my digital art into an installation. I thought of many ways of doing that because I have the augmented, I have, like I make animations, you know, like I have all that, but I've never done this. And so I think it was like really taking a risk. It was outside my comfort zone. And that's where like I really wanted to like push myself before I'm done, you know, like really like be vulnerable and like open myself up to something that I hadn't ever done before, because I've done the, you know, the augmented shows, and I've done the video animation shows and stuff, and so it was something I hadn't done. So I really, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to any future MFA students to do a performance art piece for 2 weeks, but thanks, Sue.
My question to you is, the show is called Reverberations, and when you were speaking, you talked about how things changed from what you thought you were going to do in terms of the part, so you're becoming realistic. So I wonder, I don't know when you named this show, and so I have that put in my head, but how did your idea, or what did your thought, how did your thoughts change, and what Reverberations meant when you named the show? So is there a different meaning behind what you're doing? Maybe there's not. I'm just wondering if there's so much change from when you started doing here. Like I said, you named it a long time ago, so you and something.
It's actually, I really didn't name it that long ago. I wrote my paper, and then I needed a title, and I was like, so my support paper goes along with my show, so I had to have that in 2 weeks before my defense. And so it's been probably a month since I've had the title. But it was after I wrote my paper, and I was like, kind of like the consistency is like if you look around the space, you see a lot of like, you know, like for reverberation, it's like a sound that continues, right? So it's, if that sound, if it's down a long hallway, it then becomes an echo. And so, but up close to a piano, if you hit a piano note and you hold it, it like really like you hear it because it's on that string. And I feel like that's kind of like how each one of my materials is. If you come to my garage, I have like all these pieces here. I have all these pieces here, and it's like that repetitive note that just keeps going. And so that it kind of came to me as I was writing my paper. So yeah, it hasn't been that long.
So what's your favorite color?
It's black. I told her she had to ask that. Michelle. Yeah, so all of these materials up here are items that as I would take the hammers and keys out, they would be underneath. And the cans were down in the front part of the piano when you take the front part off the, because it's obviously not going to fit under the keys. But it was really interesting to me because pretty much every piano I took apart had something, whether it was a bobby pin, a pin, maybe like a lot of like the coins, things that you might expect. But the things that I didn't expect were like poker chips or razor blades, or like there's different things that I just had no, like, it was like, how would that get there? And then the one piano had like this big handful of nuts in it, and it was just like that gross. But then I'm like, but that's kind of still a story that somebody had. And it was one of the people that were walking through my exhibit was like, oh, I bet you there was a family standing around the piano singing Christmas carols and they knocked the nuts in. And I'm like, it could be, And I think the one that gave me like the most excitement was the gold star, because anybody that's taken piano lessons knows that if you get done that song and you get to move to the next one, you get a gold star. So that's where I was like, but each find, and then there's a couple newspaper articles from 1917 that were built into the piano, and like I'm really sentimental to newspapers. I worked at a newspaper for 10 years, and Tara's here tonight. So like I just, newspapers are special to me. So when I found this and it was like a 1917 newspaper that was like built into the piano, I was so excited about that too.
Did any of these pianos come from anybody else?
So part of my process was that none of these could be precious. So they all had to be ones that were going, like, that nobody wanted anymore, that they were going to the dump. They were like not something that somebody would be like, oh, don't take it apart, And each person I contacted on Marketplace, I said, like, this is going to be taken apart. Are you okay with that? And everybody was excited. Like, I've had people come to the show that I got pianos from. So that was my first rule was like, this cannot be a precious piano, because I want it to be something that I'm actually saving. I wanted to reuse that beautiful material because like these are beautiful instruments that have had a life. They've been a part of someone's life and given memories, and I wanted to like renew that and give them a new life, and now they have new memories because they've been here with all of you and you have seen them, right? So, Shauna. It's a very good question. So I actually talk about it in my paper because the biggest thing is when you see a piano, and like honestly when I first started taking the piano apart, it was all about the material, and it was like I wasn't going anywhere with it. It was just, these are beautiful felt hammers. But then I started thinking about it, and it's like when you see an upright piano, you just see the wood, you see the hard shell, you don't see what's inside. And I like, how many times do we like put that hard shell around us and not show what's inside, So I think that's the biggest thing, is like bringing the inside out and showing people what the beauty is within, and being vulnerable, I guess. Yeah. Taylor.
Did you experience any type of creative blocks along the way, and if so, how did you overcome them?
I would say I continually had creative blocks. Scenius was a really hard one. I brought in a ton of material, and I sat here and I looked at it. I knew what I wanted to do with the piano pins. I wanted to make that coil. As you can see here, I've expanded on it since Scenius, but I just sat and looked at these buckets, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with them, because I'm so used to creating something with these. And I don't want to alter the material. I just want to let it go. And I sat there for probably like 3 days, and then Jake came along and she's like, I'm gonna help you. And she just like started throwing stuff on the floor, and she's like, hey, now just keep, I don't know if you know the impact that you had on that day, but I was just like,
Just to throw things over the floor.
because I've always like, I don't know if I've seen it like ABC instead of like, go with, you know, like in the middle and just like do this. And so once I felt like I was safe enough to just go and not be judged about it, then I really just like, I would say that was probably my most creative block, because I also saw everybody else in here doing their thing. And I'm just like, sitting on the chair, like, I don't know what I'm doing now. Anybody else?
Any other immediate questions? Because we're almost ready to serve you snacks, and please excuse my sidebar activity here.
It's all good.
But if there's no,
Will it stay here?
It comes down tonight.
it's down tonight.
And where will it go?
My house.
It comes down tonight, and it's gonna go back into my garage for a little bit, and then I'm gonna decide how I wanna. So I've been scanning like everything too, so you might see it in some of my animations, some of the stuff I built. But I'm really hoping that I can like, moving forward, I have a few ideas. One of the ones that I would like to do possibly is kind of do like a sculpture a day and photograph it, and then do a show of like all the photographs that I take with the sculpture a day. You know, because there's so much material, or maybe like a sculpture a week, because then I can actually put, you know, have more. But I think a day I wouldn't like take as much, like I would just go and do it. Whereas if you take a week, you're gonna think about it too much. And then the other thing is like, I thought about just putting a piano back together and how that would look. You know, like what would it look like if I just rebuilt something? Does it have to look like what it came from? Or can it be something different? Does it have to work, or can I make it sound like something else? You know, so I have a few ideas. Yeah, good question.
Anybody else right away? I know sometimes it takes time to take in the information, and then you might ask questions later. So maybe for now, I would like to invite you all to applaud Leanne Reed and this incredible accomplishment. I also want to acknowledge the role that her supervisor, Lisa Burke, has played, and Susan Chance as co-supervisor, committee member, and then the role of Carla Aroche as the external reviewer. It's really remarkable for students and artists to have that kind of feedback, and it really changes the game. And Leanne has obviously taken incredible risk here, which is such an incredible thing for us to witness, and I'm very grateful for it. So please now join us for a little bit of snack and drink, and now you can ask her questions directly. Okay, so thank you very much for all being here.